Welcome back to my channel. This is WireDogSec back with another video for you guys. And today we're going to cover day number 23 of TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber 2023 event. It says Coerced Authentication. Relay all the way. If you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell. Hit the like button if you're enjoying the content, and then comment below your thoughts and opinion on the information discussed in the video. Without further ado, let's get down to business. Learning objectives, the basics of network file shares, understanding NTLM authentication, how NTLM authentication coercion attacks work, how responder works for authentication coercion attacks, forcing authentication coercion using LNK files or link files. Connect to the machine. I've already done that. I got the attack box started up. I got the other VM startup as well. So let's see here. Introduction. In today's task, we will look at NTLM authentication, how threat actors can perform authentication coercion attacks by coercing authentication. Attackers can uncover sensitive information that can be used to gain access to pretty critical stuff. Let's dive in. Sharing is caring. We tend to think of computers as isolated devices. This may be true to an extent, but the real power of computing comes into play when we connect to networks. This is where we can start to share resources in order to achieve some pretty awesome things. In corporate environments, networks and network-based resources are used frequently. For example, in a network, there's no need for every user to have their own printer. Instead, the organization can buy a couple of large printers that all employees can share. This not only saves costs, but also administrators or allows administrators to manage these systems more easily and centrally. Another example of this is file shares. Instead of each employee having local copies of files and needing them to perform crazy version control when sharing files with other employees via old school methods like flash drives, the organization can deploy a network file share, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to skim through a lot of this information here. Be sure to thoroughly go back and read through here. All right, let's see here. However, it's the same file shares that can land on an organization hot water with red teamers. Usually, an employee has the ability to create a network file share. Security controls are not often applied to these shares, allowing any authenticated user to access the contents. This can cause two issues. If a threat actor gains read access, they can look to exfiltrate sensitive information and file shares of large organizations. You can often find interesting things just lying around, such as credentials on sensitive customer documents. That's true. People will do that. A lot of times sometimes they will save, usernames and passwords in the text files and Excel spreadsheets, etc., etc. If threat actors gain read access, they can alter information stored in the share, potentially overriding critical files or staging other attacks, as we'll see in this task. Before we can perform any of these types of attacks, we first need to understand how authentication works for network file shares. It says NTLM authentication and day 11 task. We learned about AD and Kerberos authentication. File shares are often used on servers and workstations connected to an AD domain. This allows AD to take care of access management for the file shares. Once connected, it's not only local users on the host who have access to the file shares. All AD users with permissions will have access to. Similarly, um, we saw on day 11, Kerberos authentication can be used to access these file shares. However, we'll be focusing on another popular authentication protocol, NET NTLM or NTLM authentication. All right, it goes and talks about SMB stuff here, so be sure to read through here. NET NTLM, often referred to as the Windows authentication or just NTLM authentication, allows the application to play the role of middleman between the client and AD. NET NTLM is a very popular authentication protocol in Windows and is also used for various different services, including SMB and RDP. It is used in AD environments as it allows servers such as network file shares to pass the buck to AD authentication. Let's take a look at how this works in the animation below. You can see users authentication right here, and you can see it flow through here to the server, domain controller, sends it back, etc., etc. Be sure to look at this thoroughly. Continue on to read through here. I'm going to skim through a lot of this here. Responding to the raise. There are usually lots of authentication requests and challenges flying around on the network. A popular tool that can be used to intercept them is Responder. And that's absolutely true. Responder allows us to perform man-in-the-middle attacks by poisoning the responses during net NTLM authentication, tricking the client into talking to you instead of actual server they want to talk to. All right, so be sure to read through here. And it says have a look at the breaching AD room. Want to know more about responder stuff. Continuing on, unconventional coercion. If we can't just listen to and poison requests, we have to create our own. This brings a new attack vector into Spotlight coercion. Instead of waiting for requests, we coerce a system or service to authenticate us, allowing us to receive the challenge. Once we get this challenge based on certain conditions, we can aim to perform two main attacks. If the password of the account coerced to authenticate is weak, we could crack the corresponding net NTLM challenge offline using tools such as Hashcat or John the Ripper. If the server or service's security configuration is insufficient, we could attempt to relay the challenge to or in order to impersonate the authenticating account. Continuing on here, it talks about principal or petite podum stuff. Exploiting Active Directory room. If you want to learn more about coercion attacks, go take a look at that. Coercing the connectee. For this task, we will focus a bit more on coercing users into authenticating to us. Since users have weak passwords, with this approach, we will have a much higher chance of cracking one of the challenges and gaining access as user. Users are now mostly connected to the file shares via VPN, so we'll simply run responder and hope for the best. So the question remains, how can we coerce users to authenticating to something we control? Let's put it all together here. Since we have write access to a file share that is regularly used, we can create a sneaky little file to coerce those users to authenticate to our server. We can just by creating a file that, when viewed within the file browser, will coerce authentication automatically. There are many different file types that can be used for this, but they all work similarly. Coercing authentication by requesting that an element such as file icon is loaded from a remote location. We will be using Intellium Theft tool to create these documents. If you are not using the attack box, you will have to download the tool first. On the attack box, we can find the tooling, but going here, so let's go ahead and do that. Remember to go ahead and download this if you're using a VPN machine. I have the attack box, so I'm just going to do it here. As you copy and paste this over, be sure to replace the attacker IP with the IP address of whatever attacker machine you're using, all right? Otherwise, it's not going to work. There we go. Looks like it was successful. So if we go ahead, let's do, oh, okay, let's go ahead and cd into stealthily, and there we go. There's the LNK file. All right, so after we get that done, we're going to navigate to this particular share, looks like. Yep. All right, so cd into stealthy, you already did. So let's use SMB client to connect as guest access, which is bad, obviously. Let's go ahead and paste that in there. Now we're in there as guest. And you can do a dir when you get in here and see what's in there. All right, and these keys dot text, the file looks pretty interesting. But first, let's put our malicious file into this directory before we steal anything. So let's go ahead and paste that in like that. There we go. Awesome. Looks like it was successful. So you're going to get greedy keys. There you go. Also, whenever you get into like a share like this, you can go and do some, reconnaissance inside of these shares. Go and look in Xco, HR, IT sales support, see if there's any other juicy information. But looks like we're finished with this here, and we're going to get into starting responder. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this over. There we go. All right, I already have a new tab open here, so I'm going to paste it and let it do its thing. And it says we have to let it run for a few minutes. Be sure to pay attention to the instructions here. I'm using the attack box, so I'm going to use ENS5. All right, here we go here. You already grabbed that. So we're waiting for this information to show up over here. I'm going to pause the video to save on time and then come back whenever this is complete. As you can see there, the hash is now captured for the administrator account, so we're all good to go. Flip back over to this other tab here. One thing to note is that you can take a look at the contents of that greedykeys.txt file, which we're going to be using with John to crack this hash here, right? It looks like a bunch of passwords and stuff, right? So that's what that looks like inside that file. So I'm going to clear all this out of here, and then you can do nano, whatever text editor you want to use, right? You're going to create a new file, post that, or paste that hash in there and save it. All right, I've already done so, as you can see there. And I'm going to copy and paste this over just to make it a lot easier. And then we're going to get to cracking with this here. Let's see what it says. I'm not sure what happened, but the password was cracked. As you can see here, administrator, and then there's the password here. Greedy grabber one at yada yada yada. Conclusion: coercing authentication with files is an incredible technique to have in your red team arsenal. Using responding to poison requests such as LLM and R typically disrupts the normal use of network devices, causing users to receive access denied messages. Using LNK files for coercing authentication means that you're not actually poisoning legitimate network services, but creating brand new ones. That's right. You have to be careful when using your responder because you can cause an outage. All right. But anyway, the password was cracked via John here, and I've also cracked it with Hashcat over here. All right, as you can see, scroll up a little bit here. Right. Oops, went too far. Hashcat. All right. It says cracked right up here, and then go and view the file, which is cracked.txt. That's what I outputted the stuff into. And you can see the password down here at the bottom, right there. So you can do it both ways. I prefer using Hashcat, honestly, in the real world. Let's go answer some of these questions here. What is the name of the AD authentication protocol that makes use of tickets as discussed above? That answer is going to be Kerberos. What is the name of the AD authentication protocol that makes use of NTLM hash as discussed above? Net to NTLM. What is the name of the responder tool that can intercept the authentication challenges? Well, that's going to be responder. What's the password? It's going to be Greedy Grabber 1, which we've already discovered once we cracked it with Hashcat and John the Ripper. It says, what is the value of the flag that is placed on the administrator's desktop? So let's go ahead and RDP into it and see what we can find out here. To RDP into this machine, you can use whatever RDP tool you want to use. I'm using Remina. Some people use X free RDP or something, whatever it's called. But let's go ahead and do it. I already got my administrator password in, so hit OK. And we're going to connect to the target machine. See what's going on here. Awesome. And let's see what's going on here. So we need to find the flag on an administrator's desktop. So let's go ahead and go to desktop here. All right, and there's the flag. There we go. Bam. All right. So if you enjoyed this task, feel free to check out the compromising Active Directory module. Be sure to check that out if you're unfamiliar with Active Directory and attacking Active Directory. On another note, I'll have some helpful links in the description box to TCM Security's free ethical hacking training. They go over Active Directory attacks such as this that you can apply to the real world. Now, if you're new here, please consider hitting the subscribe button with the notification bell. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button, helps out the channel, and comment below your thoughts and opinions. As always, thank you for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you later.